Your mind is moving, even right now, even as you're trying to focus on these words. There's a thought in the background, a worry about something you said earlier, a task you haven't finished, a conversation you need to have, a decision you're avoiding. Your brain won't stop, and you're so tired of it. You've tried meditation, you've tried distraction, you've tried telling yourself to relax, and none of it works because the thoughts keep coming, faster than you can manage them, louder than you can ignore them. This isn't a lack of discipline. This isn't you failing at calmness. This is your anxious mind doing exactly what it was trained to do. And until you understand why it won't stop, you'll keep fighting a battle you can't win. Because the problem isn't that your brain won't stop. The problem is what it's trying to accomplish by staying active. There's a woman who hasn't had a quiet mind in years. She wakes up and the thoughts start immediately. What does she need to do today? What did she forget yesterday? Is someone upset with her? Did she say something wrong? The thoughts layer on top of each other. One leads to another, and before she's even out of bed, her mind is already exhausted from running. She used to think this was normal, that everyone's mind worked this way, but then she noticed other people could sit in silence without looking uncomfortable, could finish a task and move on without replaying it. Could have a conversation and not spend the next 3 hours analyzing every word, and she realized her brain works differently, not because something is wrong with her, but because her nervous system learned that stopping is dangerous. This is the core truth about overthinking. Your brain won't stop because it believes that stopping means something bad will happen, that if it's not monitoring, preparing, analyzing, something will slip through the cracks. That vigilance is the price of safety. And so it keeps running, even when you're exhausted, even when there's nothing urgent to think about, even when you desperately need rest, because to your brain, rest feels like neglect. And neglect feels like danger. Most people try to stop their thoughts by force. They tell themselves to think about something else, to focus on their breathing, to clear their mind, and for a few seconds it works. The thoughts are quiet, and then they come rushing back. Stronger than before. Because forcing thoughts away doesn't address why they're there in the first place. Your brain isn't producing thoughts randomly, it's producing them strategically. Every worry, every replay, every what-if scenario, they're all serving a function, and that function is control. There's a man who can't watch a movie without his mind wandering. He sits down, press play, and within 5 minutes he's thinking about work, about an email he needs to send, about a conversation he had last week. He rewinds because he missed what happened. Try again, and the same thing happens. His brain pulls him out of the present and into the future or the past, never letting him stay where he actually is. He's not disinterested in the movie. He's just trapped in a mind that refuses to believe the present moment is safe enough to inhabit fully. This is hypervigilance at the mental level. Your brain is scanning constantly, looking for threats, running scenarios, preparing responses. And it does this so automatically that you don't even recognize it as a choice. It just feels like the way your mind works, like the noise you have to live with, but it's not, it's a pattern, and patterns can change once you understand what's maintaining them. Here's what's maintaining yours. Every time your brain thinks of a potential problem and you start analyzing it, your brain gets rewarded, not with pleasure, with a sense of productivity, with the feeling that you're doing something about the problem. Even if the problem is imaginary, even if the analysis doesn't lead anywhere, the act of thinking feels like action, and action feels better than helplessness. So your brain keeps doing it. It keeps generating problems to solve, because solving problems, even hypothetical ones, feels safer than admitting you can't control everything. There's a student who can't study without her mind drifting to everything she's not doing. She opens her textbook, read a paragraph, and then her brain reminds her about the assignment due next week. The exam is in 2 weeks. The email she needs to respond to, the friend she hasn't texted back. Each thought pulls her away from what she's doing, and by the time she refocuses, another thought arrives. She's not lazy, she's not distracted by choice. Her brain has learned that mental exhaustion is preferable to the vulnerability of focusing on one thing at a time, because focusing means committing. And committing means the possibility of failure, and failure feels more dangerous than perpetual distraction. This is the hidden function of the brain that won't stop. It protects you from fully engaging with things that matter, because full engagement means full exposure, and exposure means risk. Your brain would rather keep you busy thinking about 10 things poorly than let you focus on one thing completely, because thinking about 10 things feels productive. Focusing on one thing feels vulnerable. And vulnerability is what your anxious mind has been trying to avoid all along. Most people don't realize that constant overthinking isn't about the content of the thoughts, it's about the avoidance of feeling. Your brain generates thoughts to keep you from feeling uncertain, from feeling out of control, from feeling the discomfort of not knowing what happens next. And as long as you're thinking, you don't have to feel. You can stay in your head where everything is manageable, where you can analyze and predict and prepare, where you don't have to sit with the rawness of just being. There's a woman who can't be alone with herself, not physically alone, mentally alone. The moment there's silence, her brain fills it with tasks, with worries, with plans, with replays of past conversations, anything to avoid the stillness. Because stillness reveals what's underneath all the noise, and what's underneath is usually something she doesn't want to face. Loneliness, inadequacy, fear that she's not doing enough, that she's not enough, that if she stops performing, producing, managing, people will see that she's just pretending to have it all together, and so her brain keeps her busy. Keeps her thinking, keeps her moving, because moving feels safer than stopping long enough to realize she's exhausted. This is what happens when your brain won't stop. It's not malfunctioning, it's protecting you from feelings you've learned are too dangerous to experience, from truths you've decided are too painful to acknowledge, from a version of yourself that exists beneath all the doing and thinking and managing. And the only way to quiet your mind is to stop running from what it's protecting you from. This doesn't mean you have to dive into deep emotional work right now. It just means you have to start acknowledging what's true. I'm anxious, I'm tired, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, I'm overwhelmed, whatever it is, you name it. And you let it exist without immediately trying to think your way out of it. Because overthinking is what happens when you try to solve feelings with thoughts, and feelings can't be solved, they can only be felt. There's a man who spent years trying to think his way out of anxiety. He read books, he learned techniques, he analyzed his patterns, and all of it helped him understand his anxiety better, but none of it made him feel less anxious. Because understanding anxiety isn't the same as allowing yourself to feel it. And one day, in the middle of a particularly intense rumination loop, he stopped trying to figure it out. He just sat there, let the anxiety be present, let his brain spin without engaging it. And after a few minutes, something shifted. The thoughts were still there, but they were quieter, less urgent, less convincing. He didn't do anything to make them stop. He just stopped participating in them, and that made all the difference. This is the practice, not stopping your thoughts, but stopping your engagement with them. Your brain will keep producing thoughts. That's what brains do. But you don't have to treat every thought like it's important, like it requires analysis. Like it's telling you something true. Most thoughts are just noise. Your brain is running old patterns, generating scenarios, trying to keep you safe through vigilance. And once you see them as patterns rather than messages, they lose their power. You practice this by noticing when your brain starts spinning. You catch yourself mid-rumination and you pause. You don't judge it, you don't fight it, you just notice. My brain is doing the thing again. It's trying to solve something that can't be solved through thinking. And then you redirect, not to a different thought, but to something physical. Your breath, the sensation of your feet on the ground, the sounds around you, anything that brings you back to your body instead of staying trapped in your head. This feels uncomfortable at first because your brain will insist that thinking is necessary, that you're abandoning something important, that you need to finish the analysis before you can let it go. But you don't, you never did. The thinking was just a way to avoid being present, and being present is where the actual calm lives. There's a woman who used to lie awake every night with her mind racing. She'd try to force herself to sleep, get frustrated when she can't, start worrying about how tired she'd be tomorrow, which made her more awake, which made her more anxious. The cycle fed itself. And then she stopped trying to make the thoughts stop. She let them be there, she acknowledged them without following them. Okay, you're worried about tomorrow, noted. And then she brought her attention back to her breath, not to calm herself, just to have somewhere to return to when her mind wandered. And slowly, over weeks of practice, the thoughts lost their grip. They still showed up, but they didn't control her anymore. She could be awake without being consumed by the wakefulness. Could have thoughts without believing she had to do something about them. This is how to stop overthinking at night, not by forcing your mind to be quiet, but by changing your relationship with the noise, by letting it exist without needing to engage it. The same principle applies during the day. Your brain will produce thoughts, lots of them, urgent ones, convincing ones, thoughts that feel like they need immediate attention, and most of them don't. Most of them are just your nervous system running its vigilance program. Scanning for threats, preparing for problems, trying to keep you safe. And you can thank it for trying, and then choose not to participate. This is internal control. You can't control what thoughts show up, but you can control how much weight you give them, how much time you spend analyzing them, how much energy you invest in trying to resolve them. There's a man who used to treat every anxious thought like a crisis. Someone sent a short text and he'd spend an hour analyzing what it meant. He'd make a small mistake at work and replay it for days. His brain would suggest a worst-case scenario, and he'd start preparing for it immediately. And then he learned to pause, to ask himself, is this thought telling me something useful, or is this just my anxiety running patterns? And most of the time, it was the latter. His brain wasn't giving him information. It was just doing what anxious brains do, generating problems to keep him vigilant. Once he saw that, he stopped taking the thoughts so seriously. He let them be there without acting on them, and over time, they became less frequent, less intense, less convincing. Because overthinking thrives on engagement, and when you stop engaging, it weakens. Your brain won't stop completely. That's not the goal. The goal is to build a different relationship with the noise, to stop treating every thought like it matters, to stop believing that more thinking equals better outcomes, to stop using analysis as a way to avoid feeling. You practice noticing, you practice redirecting, you practice allowing thoughts to exist without needing to solve them, and slowly the grip loosens, the noise quiets, not because your brain changed, but because you stopped feeding the pattern that kept it loud. This is what it means to work with an anxious mind instead of against it. You don't fight it, you don't force it, you just stop participating in the loops it creates, and that non-participation is the most powerful tool you have. Your brain learned to stay active because it believed activity equals safety, and now you're teaching it something new, that stillness is safe, that you don't need to monitor everything, that rest isn't dangerous. And that teaching happens one moment at a time, one thought you let pass without analyzing, one worry you acknowledge without solving, one loop you notice without following. Your brain won't stop overnight, but it will be quiet, and that quiet is worth every moment of practice it takes to find it. Subscribe to The Anxious Mind to understand your anxiety without shame and train a calmer mind. Like this video if you want clarity without judgment. What's the thought your brain keeps returning to that you can't seem to let go of? Leave it in the comments. And if this resonated, the next video will show you why your mind treats rest like a threat. Thank you for being here. You're not alone in this.